In that quiet garden, amidst a bustling ant colony, lived a tiny individual named Emma. She was a brown ant, rather diminutive even compared to her own kind. Emma's body was not robust, her steps were not swift, and within the colony's harmonious workings she seemed to hold no significant role. Day after day, Emma quietly performed minor tasks, often forgotten among the crowd, but hidden deep within that fragile body was a different, enduring kind of strength, a steadfast will that never wavered. It was a small but inextinguishable flame, the very thing that defined this special ant, and what would guide her to an unexpected task, changing the entire colony's view of true strength. One early dawn, as morning dew still clung to the blades of grass, the entire colony stirred with excitement over a wondrous discovery. Perched precariously on a tall, smooth gray stone was an object that made all their senses tremble with desire, a large piece of sweet bread. It gleamed golden under the morning light, its sugar crystals sparkling like tiny jewels, emitting an irresistibly sweet, rich aroma. This was not just food, it was a feast, a treasure. Given its size, it could provide enough sustenance for the entire colony for many days, even a whole week, a rare abundance. Joy and excitement spread quickly. However, right after that moment of elation, an obvious and growing problem presented itself to all. The stone was too high and slick, standing upright like a fortified wall, and the piece of bread was too massive, too heavy, 100 times the weight of a normal ant. The initial efforts of the strongest worker ants all failed. They could neither pull the bread up nor push it down. The distance from the ground to the top of the stone suddenly became a deep chasm separating hunger from plenty. The challenge was clear. How could they turn that lofty treasure into a shared meal for the whole colony? Faced with this daunting challenge, an atmosphere of doubt and helplessness gradually enveloped the ant colony. Whispers and discussions rose and then died down, giving way to a heavy silence. A few of the bravest worker ants had tried various approaches. They attempted to climb the slippery rock face, but constantly lost their footing and fell. They tried joining forces to nudge the bread, but it wouldn't even budge. Each failure shattered hope a little more. Finally, the voice of surrender spoke up. "It's useless," a strong ant sighed, its antennae drooping. "It's impossible. This stone is a fortress, and that bread is an unreachable treasure." This assessment quickly gained consensus. Nods of resignation, shrugs of defeat spread through the colony. The mindset that giving up is safest prevailed. "Let's leave it," many voices chimed in unison. "It's better to search for crumbs on the ground than waste energy on this impossibility." The initial excitement had vanished, replaced by a sense of resignation and practicality. The colony seemed to have turned its back on the treasure above, preparing to move on to a less ambitious destination, willing to forsake a grand feast for mere insignificant scraps. In that collective moment of despair, no one considered trying even one more time. It was in that moment of despair that a small figure stepped forward. Emma, the smallest and often forgotten ant, moved toward the stone. Her action was immediately met with scornful laughter. "Emma, is that you?" A voice rang out, full of sarcasm. "Even the strongest workers failed. How could you, the tiniest one, possibly succeed?" Emma did not argue. She silently turned to face the rock face and began to climb. On her very first attempt, her feet slipped from the smooth surface. She fell, tumbling once on the ground, but she got up. The second time, she climbed a little higher before falling again. Her tiny body trembled, her leg joints ached, her back felt like it might break after each fall. Yet, after every failure, a whisper rose from the depths of her will: "I will try again." And so Emma climbed, fell, and climbed again. It was a slow, painful, exhausting process, but there was no sign of stopping. And then the miracle happened. After countless slips and falls, one final grip from Emma helped her reach the top edge of the stone. With utmost effort, she hauled her entire tiny body onto the flat surface. Emma stood at the summit beside the gigantic piece of bread. The colony of ants below held their breath, eyes wide with disbelief. But instead of trying to drag the entire piece, Emma used her intelligence. She began to bite, tear, and break the bread into tiny crumbs, morsels just the right size for a single ant to carry. Then she gently nudged each crumb over the edge of the rock, like a rain of provisions falling to the ground. By breaking down an impossible task into hundreds of tiny, feasible ones, Emma used her will and wit to solve a problem that brute strength could not. The colony suddenly saw a new path opening up. Immediately, at the base of the stone, a miraculous transformation occurred. The colony's initial astonishment quickly gave way to a fresh surge of vitality, brimming with hope and enthusiasm. The first sweet breadcrumbs falling down acted as a signal for action. Without needing a single command, all the worker ants, old and young, strong and weak, eagerly set to work. They swarmed in, each selecting a crumb suited to their strength, and began the journey of transporting them back to the nest. A neat, orderly, and efficient line of ants swiftly formed. The familiar trails became busier than ever. The previous atmosphere of silent resignation was completely erased, replaced by a buzzing excitement and the fervent mood of collective labor. The colony's shared food stores were being replenished as if by magic. Before long, every little nook in the nest was filled with wholesome, sweet bread pieces. The achievement was not just food for a week, but also a shared joy, a collective sense of victory that everyone partook in. All realized that thanks to the action of one persevering individual, the entire community had benefited. The feast that once seemed impossible had now become a sweet reality. Observing the entire event, the elder ant Winston, with his thoughtful, white-tinged antennae, slowly spoke. Today, we have all witnessed a valuable lesson. That piece of bread was too big for our collective strength, but it was never too big for the will of one determined individual. His words hung in the respectful silence. True strength lies not in muscle, but in an unyielding spirit. Remember, when a heart refuses to surrender, every material obstacle will eventually find a way to be conquered.